Doesn't it fascinate you that after visiting a website selling a product, you are followed by ads on other websites you visit? Or that you can turn your house lights on and off from your phone, or even better by asking Alexa to do it? All is possible by using APIs. Welcome to this short video series which will introduce you to APIs. My name is Valentin and I hope that by the end of it you will have a good understanding of what APIs are and you'll have gained some practical experience in using some simple APIs. Next time when you are caught in a discussion about APIs, you know what the others are talking about and you will be able to join in. For many software developers, APIs are what most of them live and breathe on a day-to-day basis. But for the rest, this is just a buzzword. When we're talking about APIs, we're typically referring to web APIs, which work over the internet. Before you can understand what are the fundamental concepts around APIs, we first need to take a step back and quickly see how the internet works. When you want to search for a flight, you open your browser and use a service like Google Flights, for example. Say you want to fly from New York to Bangkok. You enter your details, and when you hit the search button, the browser will send your request to a server. A server is this computer that has some data, usually stored in a database. The server will take your inputs, like your departure date, from which airport are you flying and where you should arrive, from your request, and will do a search in a database. This typically happens in only a few milliseconds, and when ready, the server will send a reply with the desired results. We call this flow a client-server interaction, where the client is a browser and the server is the Google Flights computer. When you are asking for a web page by using your browser, there's an underlying protocol that makes this possible, which is called HTTP, which stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol. A protocol is like a convention so that the server and the client can communicate with each other. You can better understand this by comparing it with a letter that you send using a mailing service. I know nobody uses mail anymore, but this is probably the closest example. You write your letter and you put it in an envelope and write on the envelope where you should go by writing, of course, the postal address. Now, first of all, when you're writing your letter, it should be in a language that the receiver can understand. Additionally, your letter will not end up anywhere if the address you have written down doesn't exist, or it may not have the desired outcome if you forget to put the letter inside the envelope. HTTP is just a formalized way of sending messages between the client and the server over the internet. Each HTTP message follows a strict format according to a specification. The advantage compared to regular mail is that you get a reply in only a few milliseconds. Your browser has the capability of transforming your inputs in HTTP messages that the server will recognize. Furthermore, the browser can understand the response from the server, which usually contains a page in a format called HTML and will show you a friendly interface. Now imagine that you need to send the cheapest flight you could find to somebody who will be traveling with you. You will need to extract some information like the airline, the flight number, departure time, and put them in a text format that you can easily send from your phone. As you can notice, the overall design of the page is not necessary to convey the most relevant information. Applications that are running on your computer, phone, or any other device connected to the internet work similarly in the sense that they are only interested in pure and raw data, not in font sizes or nice design elements or anything else. So if an application was to need this data, offering a normal web page will make this process a bit harder, as it will need to extract this data from the page before it can do anything with it. An API is an application or a program, if you wish, that runs on the server, which makes the data easier to understand by other applications. APIs are all about data, never about design or look or anything else. We call these applications interested in data from the server clients as well, as the interaction is similar to the one you make from a browser. What an API does is to provide the requested data in a standard format that the clients can understand and use. So the response from the Google Flights API could look something like this. You can notice that even if you're not familiar with this format, you can still read and understand most of it from what the server responded. This is a widely used format called JSON, which stands for JavaScript Object Notation. Using an API, different clients can display practically the same information using a different design. Most APIs use the same infrastructure that regular web pages use, meaning that they send and retrieve data using the internet, but instead of working with HTML, they use a format called JSON. This is not uncommon for applications running the API to be sitting on the same server as the application responsible for returning regular web pages, as they do a pretty similar job, just in a different format. Additionally, some servers can be clients as well. This is needed when they aggregate some data, transform it, or enrich it. Google Flights will typically talk in the background with APIs of different airlines to create a database with the flights available. JSON is not only used to understand the data retrieved, but also to make the request asking for data, as the server cannot know in advance what you are looking for. So what you have conveniently entered using a form on a website will look something like this when using JSON. The way the data is structured needs to be known in advance by both parties, the client and the server, and is typically decided by the developers who have created the API. For example, if the client is not sending the airport code in the format accepted, the server may not understand the request and will return an error message. So an API is not only about exposing some data, but also making transparent which data can be retrieved and how to do that. We refer to this aspect of the API as the API documentation or API specification. Most of the apps on your phone will use APIs to get and send data. They will not use a browser to do that, but they will use an internal program that can understand HTTP. Most modern websites will use APIs behind the scenes to update content on the page you are visiting in a dynamic way without you clicking anything. Alexa will use an API to answer your questions or tell you jokes. So APIs are the lifeblood for most of the applications. Just put your phone in play mode and see which apps still work as they used to. Probably not so many. And probably you'll notice that you are not getting so many ads in some of the apps. I hope this introduction has been enough to give you a better understanding of what APIs are. In the next video, I'll show you how easy it can be to get some data from an API.